Welcome to Law Maze Podcast. I'm your host, Zane Benton. The law is a maze. Let's navigate it together. So I just had a meeting with a veterans rehabilitation counselor, I believe is what her technical title is. And what she does is she works for the VA, and she does a veterans rehabilitation and employment services. So what the VR&E does is they rehabilitate veterans in ways that, on a case-by-case basis, of course, to get veterans back working. Or apparently, I guess you could have a current position and for something be happening in that position that, you know, you may need more education, more training to stay in that position. They work with you in situations like that. So for me, as I am on my path to law school, I realized that, or I think we all realize who are on this path, that it is expensive, right? And thankfully that I am a Texas veteran. I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps out of Texas. I was born and raised here, so it's my home of record. And that means that not only as a U.S. veteran, I was entitled to the GI Bill benefits, but also Texas passed a law, I can't remember, late 90s, early 2000s. Rick Perry was a governor when he was one that signed it into law, that the Hazelwood Act. So the Hazelwood Act is a state program in the state of Texas that exempts veterans from paying tuition and fees at Texas public institutions, so of higher learning, you know, so community colleges, universities, and that's for every level, you know, whether you're pursuing a associate's degree, a undergraduate degree, a master's degree, a JD, a MD, whatever it is. The caveat to that is that, to the Hazelwood Act, that is that you are only eligible for the Hazelwood Act after you have exhausted, or you cannot be eligible for federal benefits. So as most veterans who enlist or are commissioned, even out of the state of Texas, if you are, after you get out of the service, if you're eligible for the GI Bill, then you are not eligible for the Hazelwood Act yet. So for me, what I did is I used the GI Bill, post 9/11 GI Bill. That took me through undergraduate, and I got finished undergraduate school, got a bachelor's degree, and I still had, I can't remember, something like 20 something or 30 hours remaining of the GI Bill benefits. So when I started graduate school, I started using the remaining benefits from the post 9/11 GI Bill that I had selected. So that the GI Bill took me through at least half, I guess more than half of my graduate school. And while in graduate school, I exhausted 100% of the post 9/11 GI Bill. So that meant that I'm no longer eligible for the GI Bill, which instantly made me eligible for the Hazelwood Act. Now, the GI Bill is generally a better setup, the post 9/11 GI Bill, because you get the benefits there. It's different than the Hazelwood Act because the federal benefits, the benefits that the VA pays through the GI Bill, the university that you're attending or the college, they actually get a check from the VA. So the school you're going to gets paid, right? But when I was going to school, you know, this was, I graduated undergraduate in, excuse me, in 2017. But at that time, it was, they would, and I don't think it's changed, it's probably the same, but the VA would pay the tuition and fees of the highest, the highest public institution or highest cost institution in your state. So for the University of Texas at that time, it was, sorry, in the state of Texas at that time, it was the University of Texas that was the most expensive to go to. So they're kind of the benchmark that the VA would use in the state of Texas. And so basically, at any public school you went to in your state, in my case, Texas, it would pay everything. The caveat to that is your private institutions. So and once again, this may have changed, but 10 years ago at least, the VA would pay for your private schooling if you chose to go to a private school, but they would only pay up to the cost of the highest cost public institution in your state. So if the private school you went to was at or below the highest cost public institution, then everything would be paid for you. But if the private institution exceeded the cost of the public institution, then the veteran would be responsible for paying that school the remaining amount that they would owe. So the Hazelwood Act for Texas veterans is a lot different, but kind of the same. The Hazelwood Act, as I mentioned, is an exemption to public institutions. So the state says, hey, we at least in part fund you guys, so you're going to exempt these veterans from paying anything. So now apparently there's a little fine print there because I think the veteran may be responsible for at least some of the fees at some of the universities. I was looking at the University of Texas, and the best I could tell is that if I were to attend law school at the University of Texas, I would be exempted from paying all the fees except like the student services fee, which is like $200 a semester or something like that. I have not actually contacted the university to verify that, but that was just going online and looking at some documents. So the Hazelwood Act, is an exemption. So for me, I'm pretty, if I go to a public institution in the state of Texas, then I can fall back on the Hazelwood Act. I was going to mention that my graduate studies, I had to use the Hazelwood Act as a 150-hour entitlement. So after I exhausted the GI Bill in graduate school, then I used 9 hours of the Hazelwood Act, which left me with 141 hours remaining. So I have 141 hours that I can use, and most JDs are 90 to 100 hours roughly. So the 141 hours should definitely cover the JD if I were to attend a public institution in the state of Texas. Now, the public institutions in the state of Texas, if I can remember them, are the University of Texas, the University of Houston, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and the University of North Texas at Dallas. The private institutions, if I can remember them, in the state of Texas are Baylor, SMU, St. Mary's. Oh, and I also forgot Texas is a public no, because that would be private. The Texas Law School, and there's a law school in Houston. I can't even remember the name of it, but there's and maybe Texas Southern is a public school there somewhere near Houston or in Houston. But so Texas has a handful of public universities or public law schools and a handful of private law schools. So public law schools, would cover the Hazelwood Act, but the Hazelwood Act covers nothing, exempts you from nothing at private institutions in the state of Texas. So during my research, I found, I was trying to see if there were any more benefits within the VA that I'd be eligible for, and came across the VR&E, which, so I they have this deadline that, like, if you're a veteran that was discharged before sometime in 2013, which I am, I was discharged, honorably discharged in March of 2010, that people before the 2013 deadline, you only have like 12 years after your discharge date to submit for the VR&E. And after that, they say you're not eligible, but they'll make exceptions. So I applied anyways. And I was like, worst they can say is no. And I really wasn't even expecting because, I'm definitely 16 years past the deadline date. Um, uh, or 16 years past, my time of being discharged. And if there's a 12-year deadline, I would have, that deadline for me would have been sometime in 2022. But I applied just to see if they would even listen to my case. And surprise, surprise, I got an email from the VA. It took a while. It took like a couple months maybe for them to finally send me back something. But it said, "Hey, you're eligible for a review." I was like, okay, so uh, that was kind of all the email said. And then I got another email here just last week, I believe, that said they had preemptively scheduled me for a group orientation today at 8 o'clock a.m. my time. And then after that, the email, it said, and you'll also be meeting with your VRC or Veterans Rehabilitation Counselor, and they'll discuss more in detail everything about your case, and kind of give you the next steps. And so I had the meeting with. I did the orientation, and then I also that was from 8 to 8:30, and then immediately after, within 30 minutes, I got an email saying, "Hey, you have a meeting with your counselor at 9:30." I was like, "Sweet!" So I hopped on the call, Microsoft meeting or team meeting thing, um, with the VRC, and she was very nice, very professional, and we went over everything to do with my case, or at least as it's pertinent to the VA and how they may or may not handle my VR&E, you know, movement going forward. And so I was kind of optimistic going into it, and I think I'm probably a little bit less optimistic now. Um, the reason that I wanted to, the thing is with the VR&E is if you are found eligible, there is, for the services, whatever plan they devise for you to say, hey, this is where you can go do that. And this is for everything, right? Like this isn't even to, if you're trying to become a plumber, there was a guy there in the orientation, he was wanting to do plumbing. And of course they would, if he were found eligible, they would cover his schooling and licensing to become a plumber, which is fantastic. Um, but there is no cap on that. So whereas like the GI Bill, you have a hard cap, a monetary value cap on how much the VA will pay for your schooling. With the VR&E, there is no cap on that. So it's kind of wild that they would do it like that, but they do. And so and then it applies to public or private institutions, doesn't matter. So as I have listened to the LSAT Thinking LSAT podcast, they have made it clear that your best path to law school is by doing as good as you can on the LSAT, and getting the highest GPA possible in your undergraduate school that you can get. Um, but the next thing is that they say that you must apply broadly. And so by applying broadly, that means applying to a bunch of different schools, right? Like you can't just, or I guess you could, but it's probably not in your best interest to just apply to one or two or three or five or even 10 schools, right? and they don't give a hard number on what it means to apply broadly. You know, they're like on a case by case thing, of course. Um, but they definitely make it clear that you need to apply to many schools. And if you don't apply to many schools, then you're putting all of your eggs in those few school baskets that you apply to. And if you don't get accepted, or if they don't give you a good discount, i.e., scholarship, then you're kind of stuck there. And if you don't get it, if you're rejected from all those, you're just not going, right? So for me, I have gone to lsdlaw.com, or sorry, not .com, lsd.law, and um, there they talk about they show all the data from the different law schools, and this is self-reported data, and I'm going to try to show it here if I can. Um, okay, so sorry, this is not the best, but you can see right here, this is me, and these are the different schools that I have at least listed that I have intended to apply at. And so, starting at the top is University of Texas, and then North Carolina, Boston, University of Florida on down. And if you go down here, you can see that I have 46 total applications of where I intend to apply. Um, Now you can see here that my GPA is not good. This is a LSAT calculated GPA. This is not the GPA that I was conferred at the time that I graduated from my undergraduate, which was not that great either. I had a 3.43. But this GPA accounts for the when I graduated high school and I went to University of San Antonio, or University of Texas, San Antonio in 2002, 2003. I was just screwed off the whole time. Didn't go to class, and I got some Fs. Actually, I think my whole second semester, except one class, was an F. Got a F in the first, semester, and just, So this is a representation of all of the uh, classes that I ever took, wrapped up into an LSAC calculated GPA, they refer to it as. So I'm definitely not, banking on my GPA to do any favors for me, obviously. And this is not an official LSAT score. This is just what I've put in to try to be like, hey, like what would happen if I did get a 165. And so you can look, and if we just pick one at random here, we'll pick the University of Miami, and I'll have to go to Miami, and here you will see that this little blue line, or the little blue dot on the chart, is me with the score of a 165, which, like I said, is pending, of course. And my definite subpar GPA. But you can see on this scatter plot that the little blue being me, and the x-axis is GPA, and sorry, the x-axis is LSAT score, and the y-axis is GPA. And you can look up here, and the median LSAT score and the median GPAs are listed, and you can see where you fall. And so I am definitely, looking all around the country and seeing, to the point of applying broadly, it's clear that I need to apply to a lot of schools, right? I have 46 listed on my lsd.law profile. I actually reduced that the other day. I had gone down to, I was at like 63 or something. And I'm just like, I'm like, okay, I need to reduce some of these. So I went to the ones that like kind of just have basically no chance, especially my GPA. Like New York, NYU, It's like, okay, if you look at NYU, um, let me bring that back up. But if you look at NYU, there's just basically no chance of me getting in there with the GPA because you can see where people have reported, like, okay, if I were to get a 165, I'm not getting in there at all. There's literally no chance. But even if I were to get up like a 175, I would be like right here. Notice there's no green around me. Now that can change next cycle. And I could apply, and the far off chance that I'd get accepted, that'd be cool. But really not even going to waste my time with this, right? So with that, just really reemphasizes that I need to apply broadly. And so to me, applying broadly is going to be applying to at least 40 schools. And the more majority of those I may get rejected, and that's fine, but there will be a little basket of schools that do accept me. And those will be the ones that I then, I'm able to focus on and see what's best for me, what's best for my family, what's best for my finances. And so the VA, the VR&E program, pull it back into that, the VR&E program will allow me to go to schools across the country, and and they would cover that. Now, of course, I still got to get approved. I don't know. I'm honestly not too optimistic that I'm going to get approved after having the meeting, because the lady, she's like, well, you have a master's degree, you have an MBA, and you have a bachelor's in management. And so, you know, how can't you use that to find employment? So I had to explain to them the best I could. And, uh, I think that I did it. I did the application process and the interview just now. I just finished it right before I hopped on this show. Um, I did that because for me, it's like the worst thing that can happen is they say no, right? And like they say, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And whether it's you know, I don't even know if there would probably be people that would maybe be like, man, like you shouldn't even do it anyways. You've got they covered your, um, your undergraduate studies, and then part of your master's degree, and now you're asking for them. Where I'm like, look, I didn't make these programs, right? And if I'm not eligible, they're not going to allow me to use the VR&E program. But if I am eligible and they do allow it, then I'd kind of be crazy for not doing it, right? And especially under the let's play out this scenario that every school in Texas denies me, right? Or public schools at least. And so, um, if I get denied by all the public schools in Texas, then I can't use the Hazelwood Act. And if I can't use the Hazelwood Act, then there's a good chance that I'm going to be paying a lot of money for law school, and I just really don't want to do that. So I'm trying to put my best foot forward in every possible way I can. Right now, I'm studying for the LSAT so I can raise my LSAT score, or well, not raise it, but get a high LSAT score. And hopefully there will be some universities across the country that they're like, hey, like, okay, this guy, he's screwed off in school, literally 24 years ago. But we see that there's a lot of potential in him, and look at his LSAT score. And so if that's the case, maybe one of these schools or a few of these schools give me a good scholarship option, which I'd be very thrilled to evaluate at that time. But I'm also not going to bank on that. If I could put the VR&E in my back pocket and always have that, it's like I want to take it. So I would. I'm saying all this to kind of give people, especially veterans that are looking for options for themselves, that whether you're in undergraduate school, whether you'd even started school at all, maybe you've already graduated and have a bachelor's degree, there are more paths that you can take than just the traditional path. And I think for all of us, we need to be prodding and probing every little direction that we can, right? And maybe even if there's a little bit of pushback from there, it's like the VR&E. They say that so this lady that I met with, very nice woman, she's my counselor, and she's really going to be the one that determines whether I'm even eligible for it or not. Like, she's kind of the gateway for me. But if the counselor denies you, then you can take it to a next higher reviewer. And I can assure you that if the counselor denies me, I'm going to take it to the next higher reviewer. Why? Why not? If my decision is to not pay for law school, pay as little as possible for law school, and the VR&E is there and it's an option, I'm going to try everything I can to make myself a subject of that program. And like I said, maybe they don't. I'm just screwed in that regard, and maybe they say, "Hey, Zane, like good try again, but no, go pound sand and do something different. But we can't help you here," and that's fine. That's very understandable. I will not be upset. I will not be mad. I'll just move forward in a different. I'm moving forward in multiple directions at the same time, because I don't know what direction, what path is ultimately going to open the widest door for me, right? And I want that door to be as wide open so I can just go right through it. And if I get to a door that's maybe partially closed, I'll try to open it a little bit more and move forward, right? And that's just ultimately, getting the JD, which I have to do before I can sit and pass the bar. But you know, getting this JD is just going down those different paths and exploring what paths are fruitful for me. Some of them may not be fruitful for all. I mean, there may not be a path that's fruitful for me, in which case I may have to plant my own trees, right? And water them and grow them so I can pick these fruits later on. And it's going to take more work than maybe I had anticipated, but that's okay. I mean, it's, like I say, if it was easy, not everybody would do it. And I'm just ready to do whatever it takes to make this happen. So, um, in short, do everything that you can to move forward in the direction that you want to go. Do research now, especially with AI, right? Like, everybody has to have some AI that they're talking to almost on a daily basis, right? Like, it can help you with almost anything. And I'm not talking about going deep into Claude code and learning how to write programs and stuff like that. No, I'm just talking about a chatbot, Chat GPT, Grok, Claude, the web browser itself. And that's the way that I came across the VR&E program. I went to Grok and I asked Grok, I said, "Hey, like, gave him my situation. Are there any benefits that I could potentially qualify for?" And Grok listed some things and brought up the VR&E and even talked about the 12-year deadline, but said, "Hey, they make exceptions sometimes." And so I'm like, well, I want to try my best to get into that. And so, whatever your situation is, if you have questions, if you think that, especially if you think that something can't be done, I would highly advise you to use an AI chatbot, Grok, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever it is, and get a conversation going and put the thought into it. Right? Don't just write one sentence like, "Hey, in my case, hey, I'm a veteran." Enter. Or education benefits for veterans. Enter. Right? Like, you need to, like, the more detail you can give it, the better of a story that it will have of you in your situation, which in turn it will be able to produce a better output that is more contextual to your situation. So get that mind going. If you got questions, get into the chat bots, ask it, and move forward. So just want to give a quick little update on where I sit right now. Still studying for the LSAT every single day. I had a fantastic day of study 2 days ago. I missed one question the entire day of drill. I was drilling for like 7 or 8 hours or something, and I missed one question. I was so happy about that. But the LSAT is or the study at least, it is a very, very, very humbling experience. The moment you take your foot off the gas pedal, man, do you just start hitting roadblocks, hitting roadblocks. And so yesterday, I went in with so much confidence because of the day before, the study that I had the day before. And I sat down and just started missing questions. I get a few right missed questions. I had on my LSAT demon thing of the 25 questions that it shows you, or 25 most previous question attempts. Um, I had missed like 6 or 7 questions, and it's just like demoralizing. I'm like, how can this be happening? Well, what was happening is I wasn't engaging with the passage. I wasn't, I was reading it, but not like I should be, right? Like I should be stopping at every punctuation, every period, and digesting what the sentence says, really understanding it, put myself in those shoes, not agreeing with the passage just for the sake of agreeing with the passage, finding the holes in it. And after reading the passage, then really start trying to understand what the author is saying in general, finding the holes in the author's argument or position. And then once I see the question, one of the things I love about the LSAT Demon is that you can hide the question and you can hide the answer choices. So I keep the question and the question and the answer choices hidden. When I'm ready to see the question, I open up the question after reading the passage. And then what they say to do is really try to predict the answer. So based off the passage that I just read, based off the question that they're asking me, what answer is it that I will find? Sometimes it is like a necessary assumption question. I mean, it basically has to be something. Now, if it's an assumption that's being made, if it's a sufficient assumption, it could be a plethora of things potentially that make those answer choices correct in the context of the passage. And a supported statement, or question, it could be anything that supports the passage, right? But trying to really, really, really engage and predict the answers really, really helps. And yesterday, I must not have been, even though I thought that I was, I must not have been engaging and predicting as well as I should have. So I, missed too many questions yesterday, and I was, kind of upset about that. But it's easy because you can just get right back on track and start doing the things that that you should be doing, that I should be doing, and start answering those questions again and answering those questions and engaging and predicting the answers. And now, what I do is I try not to go into the answer choices without making a prediction, at least one. And sometimes I have to sit there for 4 or 5 minutes and just looking at the passage and thinking, man, like I need a prediction here, but there's no prediction. Then finally, not all the time, but most of the time, a prediction will pop in my head, or one or two or three, and that will allow me to move forward into the answer choices with more confidence and more ability to find the right answers. So, anyways, thank you for joining me on this episode of the Law Maze podcast. We'll see you next time.